Imagine this. You're digging deep into the earth, like way down there, and you hit a layer of intensely radioactive material. You know, the kind of stuff you only find after a nuke goes off. But here's the kicker, this wasn't some Cold War leftover. We're talking billions of years ago, long before humans even existed. So what gives? Could there have been an advanced civilization here before us, one that maybe got a little too trigger-happy with the nukes? Or are we talking something even crazier, like an extraterrestrial force messing around with our planet? This isn't just some fringe theory, folks. There's actual evidence out there, stuff that points to a nuclear catastrophe so far back in time it'll make your head spin. We're talking a full-blown nuclear apocalypse before humans were even a blip on the evolutionary radar. So, picture this. It's the 1970s and some scientists are chilling in Gabon, Central Africa, checking out this uranium mine called Oklo. They're expecting the usual, rocks, dust, maybe a little bit of radiation. But what they find blows their freaking minds. I'm talking about radioactive isotopes that are a dead ringer for the stuff you find in modern-day nuclear reactors. Now, we're talking about uranium-235 here, the big kahuna of nuclear bombs. This stuff usually hangs out at a pretty consistent level in nature, right? But in Oklo, way lower than it should be. And you know why? Because something used it up. Something that knew exactly what it was doing. We're talking about nuclear reactions, people, billions of years ago. Now, the mainstream science guys, they'll tell you it was just a natural nuclear reactor, some freak of nature. But let me ask you this. Have you ever seen a natural nuclear reactor? They're about as common as unicorns riding skateboards. This Oklo thing, it's not just some random anomaly. It's got all the hallmarks of a nuclear test site, just like the ones we use today. The way the isotopes are distributed, the depletion of uranium-235, it's all there. It's almost like someone took the blueprints from a modern reactor and said, "Hold my beer, watch this." So, are we supposed to believe that Mother Nature just stumbled upon the secrets of nuclear fission a couple billion years ago? Or could it be that we're not the first ones to figure this whole nuclear thing out? That maybe, just maybe, there was an ancient civilization here before us, one that was way ahead of its time. Alright, let's jump over to the Libyan and Egyptian deserts, sand, camels, the whole shebang. But hidden amongst the dunes, there's something strange going on. We're talking about pieces of glass, green and yellow, scattered across the desert. Now, these aren't your average beer bottle shards. This glass was formed under such insane heat that it could only have been created by something truly catastrophic. And get this, it looks almost identical to the melted glass found at the Trinity nuclear bomb test site in New Mexico. Yeah, the one where they tested the first atomic bomb. So, what could have possibly generated that kind of heat in the middle of the desert? The mainstream explanation, a meteorite impact. But there's just one tiny problem with that theory. There's no crater. It's like the impact just vanished into thin air. So if it wasn't a meteorite, what could it have been? Well, some researchers, and I'm talking about the ones who aren't afraid to go down the rabbit hole, they believe it was a nuclear explosion. I mean, it makes sense, right? Think about it. Ancient civilizations, maybe a little more advanced than we give them credit for, duking it out with weapons of unimaginable power. We're talking about wars that make World War II look like a schoolyard scuffle, and the evidence is right there in the glass. It's like a giant melted fingerprint, a silent testament to a destructive power that we can barely comprehend. It's enough to make you question everything you thought you knew about history, about our place in the universe. Now let's delve into some ancient texts, the kind of stuff that's been passed down for centuries. I'm talking about the Mahabharata, one of the two major Sanskrit epics of ancient India. This thing is packed with stories of epic battles and godlike powers, the kind of stuff that makes Marvel movies look tame, but here's where it gets really interesting. Scattered throughout these ancient verses are descriptions of weapons and warfare that sound eerily similar to, you guessed it, nuclear weapons. We're talking about weapons that could wipe out entire cities in a flash, incinerating everything in their path. There are even descriptions of people suffering from mysterious illnesses that sound a lot like radiation sickness. I mean, come on, they didn't even have the word radiation back then. One passage from the Mahabharata describes a weapon that shone like 1,000 suns and annihilated everything in its path. The bodies were burned beyond recognition. Those who survived suffered from strange illnesses. Does that sound familiar? Because it sounds a hell of a lot like the aftermath of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Now I know what you're thinking. Joe, you're reaching here. These are just myths, stories. And yeah, maybe they are. But what if they're not? What if these ancient texts are actually eyewitness accounts, passed down through generations? of a time when humanity possessed technology that we can only dream of today? It's a terrifying thought, but it's one that we can't just ignore. Because if it's true, it means that we're not as smart as we think we are, that we've been down this road before, and it didn't end well. Alright, let's say, just for a second, that this nuclear explosion theory is true. That billions of years ago something went boom on Earth, something big enough to leave behind all this evidence. But here's the real head-scratcher. If humans weren't around back then, who the hell set it off? Well, buckle up, folks, because we're about to go full ancient aliens on this one. One theory is that it wasn't humans at all, but extraterrestrials. I'm talking about aliens, folks. The real deal. Think about it, they're zipping around the cosmos, checking out planets, and they stumble upon Earth. Maybe they thought it would be a cool place to set up shop, or maybe they just wanted to use it as a giant science experiment. And what better way to test out some new technology than to set off a few nukes? It's not like there were any environmental regulations back then. And let's not forget about all those ancient cultures with their stories of gods descending from the sky. The Egyptians, the Mayans, the Sumerians, they all talked about these advanced beings who came from the stars. Could these gods have been aliens with a penchant for nuclear weapons? And here's a thought that'll really bake your noodle. Some researchers believe that the moon itself is an artificial construct, placed there by an advanced extraterrestrial civilization. Now I know that sounds crazy, but stay with me. If they could build a giant artificial satellite and park it in Earth's orbit, what else could they do? Now, let's get back down to Earth, literally. Scientists have been digging around in the Earth's crust, like you do, and they've found something really weird. I'm talking about sudden spikes in radioactive isotopes, specifically Krypton-85 and Xenon-135. Now these isotopes are like the calling cards of nuclear explosions. They're not something you just find lying around. And these spikes, they're not just in one place. They're scattered throughout different layers of the Earth, like someone was having a nuclear field day billions of years ago. It's like finding a bunch of dinosaur bones with bullet holes in them. Something just doesn't add up. So why aren't scientists all over this? Why isn't this front page news? Well, that's a great question. Some people, and I'm not saying it's true, but some people believe that there's a cover-up going on. They think that the powers that be, the ones who control the flow of information, they don't want us to know about this. Maybe they're afraid of what it means, of the implications it has for our understanding of history, of our place in the universe. Or maybe, just maybe, they're not telling us everything they know. Let's be honest here, folks. How much of this stuff do you see in your average textbook? How often do you hear about ancient nuclear wars or alien civilizations on the nightly news? Not very often, right? And when you do hear about it, it's always dismissed as fringe science, conspiracy theories, the ramblings of madmen. But what if they're not so crazy after all? What if there's more to the story than we're being told? Think about it. If there was even a shred of evidence to support these claims, wouldn't the government, the scientific community, wouldn't they want to investigate it further? Wouldn't they want to get to the bottom of it? Of course they would. Unless, of course, they already know the truth. Maybe they've already found the smoking gun, the irrefutable proof that we're not alone, that we're not the first ones to walk this earth. And maybe, just maybe, they're keeping it a secret. Why? Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Maybe they're afraid of what it would do to society, to our understanding of ourselves. Or maybe they're just waiting for the right time to tell us, to let us in on the biggest secret in human history. So there you have it, folks. The evidence is out there. The question is, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to dismiss it as crazy talk, or are you going to keep an open mind? Could it be that an ancient civilization, more advanced than our own, existed on Earth billions of years ago only to be wiped out by a nuclear holocaust? Or did something else happen? Something even more incredible, something involving beings from beyond the stars? The truth is out there, somewhere. It's up to us to find it. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to the Secret Organization channel for more mind-blowing revelations. We're not afraid to ask the tough questions, to delve into the mysteries that others won't touch. Join us, and together, let's uncover the truth.